Hi, I'm Dorcas Hammond from Dorcas Fashion Academy, and today I'm going to do a tutorial to teach you how to make this lovely double elf stocking. It's not as difficult as it looks, and it's great fun for kids and adults alike. We have everything cut, so we're going to start sewing now. So because we have 3 red pieces, I've threaded my sewing machine in red, and these are the straps. We're going to take our straps lengthwise with the right sides together, fold it. We're going to sew the ends and the length, leaving a gap in the middle, so that when we turn it the right way round, we have 2 nice neat edges. We can sew at 1 centimeter seam allowance, leaving a gap in the center of about 5 centimeters. In the gap, we finish and start with a reverse. A few stitches back and a few stitches forward. In this way, it won't unravel when we turn it the right way round. So as you can see, this is our little gap, and we'll turn them around. Trim off the ends and cut the corners. This way it's not bulky when you turn it the right way round. And cut off all the threads. I hate the threads. So you can turn it around with another pair of scissors or a knitting needle and bring it out through the gap. Make sure that you poke the corners nicely, because this is going to be visible when we attach it to our little elf. Okay. This we shall close with a slip stitch later, but first we have to press. Okay, so now we have these 2 pressed and sewn. We only need to do our little slip stitch, which we'll do later. So since our sewing machine is in red, we're going to carry on with our stockings and our waist piece. Taking only one of our green little legs, we are going to add the spotty fabric. Now, the spotty fabric just goes as an applique on top, but we have to sew it very neatly here at the ankles of our little booties. So I'm going to fold this down at about 1 centimeter and place a pin, but I don't like to sew it with a top stitch. We're going to do this, but then we're going to sew it on the inside, which is much neater and much more elegant, in my opinion. So on doing this, now I know that the position is okay. I lift it up and I reposition my pins on the fold that I just did. In this way, we don't see a stitch where our booties are going to be held. So if we do it in this manner, it should be fine. We can double check it by putting it down and checking that it meets the foot on the green fabric. Okay. Okay, so these are fine, ready to be sewn. And then we're going to take this red piece, which is going to be sewn up here. This is just for decoration. I've just realized that this one is much pointier than these, so I'm going to go and trim off a little bit and make these pointy, which look much nicer. And I will also pin this one here, and I will secure it with a stitch. We will have another piece later, but in this manner we can make sure it's going to be in the correct place. So it will be a stitch at the top and 2 on our little booties. So we go back to the sewing machine again. So I'm going to sew with a reverse at the beginning. Remember that if we put our pins sideways, we can sew over them. But if we put them straight, we've got to remove them as we go along. So the top one is done. And I'm going to sew these, but I'm going to have to take off the pins as I go along. If you see the way I'm sewing, I'm having the excess fabric on my left so that I don't have it all inside the sewing machine. Okay. So these are done. I'm going to cut my threads and press these booties down, and I'm going to pin it to the green fabric so it doesn't move, and if there's anything extra I'll trim it later. So I've just pressed this, so I'm going to put a couple of pins sideways just to secure the spotty fabric onto the green fabric. This is just to keep it in place for later. I could sew around it just to secure it for the moment, but really there's no need, because we'll sew it together with the other piece of green fabric. Okay, so I'll keep this one to one side, and we get the back of the stocking. Now I've already set my sewing machine in white. So this one is going right at the top in the same manner as we did the other one. Okay, and now this one we do the same on top of the red. And we're going to sew across to secure them in place at 1 centimeter seam allowance. You see, we'll sew across here and then we'll lift it up. So we're going to go to our sewing machine. Again, remember to do a reverse stitching at the beginning and one at the edge. So now both of these are sewn. This is going to go upwards, and on this one you have to be very careful, because if you don't sew below the other stitching that you've done before, you're going to see it on this side. This one's come out correct, so it's great. We need to press this up, and then we're going to put our stocking together. Okay, so now we've got all our pieces together, and I've pressed the top bit, and we have to put one on top of the other, right sides together. What is most important is that we match up these seams. There's nothing worse than two seams not matching. Okay, so you match them up and place a pin on your stitching, making sure that that pin matches your stitching on either side. So that's the first thing that you do. The rest is quite simple. Okay. All right, so I'm going to pin all the way around, preparing it to sew. And again, if I put my pin sideways, I will be able to sew over them, and this way it won't move, because if you start removing the pins, by the time you're here you're going to have more fabric on the top layer than on the bottom layer. Oops. It doesn't matter if you have a little bit of red coming out, because afterwards we're going to trim it. So now that we're finishing pinning, we are going to sew this all the way around except the top, all the way around at 1 centimeter seam allowance, but don't sew the top, because we're going to turn everything around from here. Okay. Don't forget the reverse at the beginning. And here, don't take the pin off, the one that's here on the seam or the join, because you want it to continue there matched up. So now, as you can see, I've changed my thread to green. I've already done the white, and now we're going to carry on with the green. Here on the curve, you have to be very careful. You have to take it slowly so that you don't lose any of your layers. And so at 1 centimeter seam allowance. And if you see here, we have a square edge, meaning that you have to have a couple of stitches in between, because it's so thick that if you made it as a point, you wouldn't be able to get to the point properly. So you do your centimeter, a couple of stitches across, and then continue down. 1, 2, and then continue sewing. your 2 stitches across, and then your curve. And here where we finish, just before we get to the green, we do a reverse stitch just to secure that bit. So now we have our double elf stocking sewn. Take off all the pins. We're going to check our seams here, that they are well matched. It's very important to see that it looks good. And we're going to trim. There's no need to trim on the straighter lines, but we do have to trim on the curved, and we have to do some notches on these pronounced curves so that when we turn it the right way round, we've got a good shape. So before I trim, I'm going to check that I've got my layers together, that I haven't missed a spot in between. There's nothing more annoying is to turn it around and then see that you've got a little gap or you're missing a piece of fabric. So I'm just checking it, and I'm seeing that it looks fine. In the curve here is the most dangerous bit, but we have 3 layers there, so that's fine. I'm going to start trimming my booties. Trim close, but not too close. Okay, one booty done. I'm going to do a few notches, but watch out that you don't cut your threads. The notches are so that when you turn it the right way round, which this is going to be completely opposite, you can. Because otherwise, if it doesn't, it won't turn when you turn it the right way around, and it'll be bulky. So, we're nearly there. Now, stick your hand in. And the other one. And we're nearly there. So gently with a pair of scissors, I'm going to poke out these booties. This you've got to be careful. But you still have to poke them out, because if you don't, it won't look right. Okay. Gently, but firmly. And to be honest, a lot of people are scared of doing this. Pokey, pokey. But if you don't do it, the result is going to be awful. And if you were to make a hole in your booty, it's quite simple. You go back, turn it wrong way round, and you just sew across. So the solution to a mistake is easier than having not a pointy booty. So because we have done our notches, we have a great curve here and a great curve here because it turns round properly. So now we have to fold this in. Again, we have to change our sewing machine, and I'm just going to fold it inwards to about 4 centimeters. This piece is 9 centimeters in total, so you can push the seam to one side, it's quite narrow anyway. And what we want to do is to machine stitch this down. I'm going to press it, change the thread to the white and machine stitch this down so that we have a narrower but neater waistband. So I folded this down, and what we're going to do is sew a machine stitch straight on the seam. It's just to secure it. The rest won't matter because what we're doing is putting 2 buttons with the strap. So it's not a problem if all of it is not secured. So I've already changed my sewing machine and just secure a little stitch in white on the seam just to keep it down. Don't forget, reverse at the beginning and reverse at the end. We stress this so much in our school because otherwise things will just unravel. Whoops. Okay. So now we're ready to put a bit of wadding in our booties and our straps. We need to sew this closed, our little gap, but because we need to also sew our buttons and our bells, I'm going to leave it to the last. So basically is find where you think that your straps would look nice. I'm going to put the seam towards the outside. Oops. Position them and obviously you can measure to see if they are centered. This one's got 6 1/4 and this one's got 6.1. So I'm just going to shove it to the side, and then we're going to do the same on the back. And here is where we're going to sew our buttons to secure. 5. Right. Of course I'm measuring, but it's really not that important if it's not 100% centered. So I'm going to get my buttons and my thread and my wadding, and we're going to finish this little elf. Okay, so now we're going to do a ladder stitch or a slip stitch. It's quite simple if you know how, but really it's you take a single thread and put the knot inside, and what we're going to go is from side to side, not over stitch, but we're going to go in on the fold of the edge, and then we go across. and we go again in on the folded edge. I'm trying to hold it up here so that you can see what I'm doing. So what we're doing is from side to side. We go a stitch, and what we have is like little threads, like a ladder. And this way, when we pull it, it closes up. If we have it open like this, all you see is threads crossing from side to side on the edge of the folded fabric. As you can see, we've got little threads, and you do that through the whole opening. On either side until you get to the end. And when you get to the end, you pull and everything closes up. This is better than doing an over sewn stitch, which you can see all your stitches. So I've pulled, and as you can see, the stitches close the fabric. And this is the way we finish in our workshop. We do a little knot, leaving the needle in and the thread that's coming out of the fabric, 1, 2 and 3, and this creates a knot. And then we just slip the needle through the fabric, maybe a centimeter or 2 in front, leaving that little edge of thread inside, and we cut. So this is our slip stitch. You can't see it, it's just keeping it like a seam, and this is the way we're going to do both. This one I'll do later. And now what we're going to do, we're going to sew our buttons. Now I've chosen the reds and the greens mixed, and I want to put one on each. I think it's a lot more fun. This time we're going to have double thread with a knot at the end, not single thread like we did the slip stitch, because this time we're going to secure it a bit more. And I'm going to sew the red thread on the green and the other way around, just to give it a bit of character. So the buttons, I start underneath, leaving the knot in between hidden. And I just grab my little button. I'm just doing a crisscross here. You can sew the buttons in many ways, but I'm going to go across and do a little crisscrossy in and out through all the layers, because this is the only support that our straps are going to have. So it's in and out for a few, and because you've got double thread, obviously it's going to be more secure. And then we go the other way. All right, so only a few times. And then again, like before, the type of knot that we do is you take a little bit of fabric and you leave the needle in, and the thread that comes out of the fabric, 1, 2, 3 around your needle and out and pull. And this makes you a nice neat knot for everything that you need to sew. So I'm going to do the red button with green thread in the same manner and finish all the buttons. So I've sewn my buttons and now it's just the finishing touches. Obviously you can do whatever you think that you'd like to do. You can put a little patch or decorate it as you see fit. we are going to put some little bells. And I've got these tiny bells which don't ring too much, but I'm going to put them in these points of the red zigzaggy. But first of all, we're going to add some wadding in our boots. So I'm just grabbing a little bit and see if I put it right where the point is. We push it a little bit, it just stays there. Just makes it a little bit more fun. Let's see how they look, and then if I would like to put some more, I can. Mainly it's just to bump up the little tips of the booties. So I'm going to kind of get equal amounts, more or less, and push it down at the bottom. Just makes it a bit more fun. The booties I haven't pressed. If you notice in the tutorial that I haven't pressed, I've just wriggled the edge out. I have pressed this top bit, but not the booties. Okay, so I've got some red thread here, and I'm going to sew my bells on the tips of my booties. And I'm catching the red, not the green, because I've got red thread. I'm going to try and have a small little knot first, and then just sew the bell like you would a button. Oops. The thread has broken, but it's not a problem. We do a little knot on the thread that's just broken, and when we start going back, it'll stay inside. On bigger things, I prefer to use double thread. Not only do you have to not go through it more times as if it was single, it's just a bit tighter and stronger. Not that this is going to carry any weight, it's just to decorate it. All right, so I've done a few turns. Again, needle in, the thread coming out from the fabric, 1, 2, 3, and pull. So that's one bell done. I'm going to do the other one in the same manner. Catching the red, 1, 2, and sewing our bells. One, 2, 3, and that's our knot done. Right, so these little ones just at the tip of our 4 points here, I'm going to do a red, a gold, a red and a gold. And obviously you can do anything you want to this. And if you'd like to make these, we sell our patterns on Etsy. This one is the Double Love stocking, and they're going for $9.99. And you know that in our school we teach, and you cannot use the pattern to sell, but you can make the item and sell it. We allow that. So it's good fun, and it would be also a good little money-making scheme. So don't forget, it's on our Etsy shop, Dorcas Fashion Academy. And we're on TikTok and we're on Facebook, and you can ask me all the questions you want. Obviously this pattern comes with a tutorial and pattern. And soon we hopefully would like to sell kits as well. Ready cut, ready prepared, only for you to sew. Because that's something that people have been asking for. We do that in our workshop, but not on our Etsy site, but we will do soon. Okay, so now it's done. And as you can see, it wasn't that difficult at all. It's a great stocking. It's quite spacious. You can put a lot of things inside, and it's just good fun for Christmas. I hope you enjoyed our tutorial, and don't forget that we sell our pattern on our Etsy site, Dorcas Fashion Academy. We're on YouTube, we're on TikTok, all as Dorcas Fashion Academy. Thank you for watching.